Martin Pear Fellowship is a fellowship that honors Martin Pear, who passed away, but he was someone who worked in the JCC movement his whole career, like over 30 years, I believe. And his daughter started this fellowship in his memory because he loved the concept of the JCCs and the idea of people bringing Israel into their communities and bringing Judaism together with that. So they started this fellowship, which gives people who are working in the JCC movement an opportunity to go to Israel. Normally, this fellowship is designed for people who were early on in their careers at the JCC. But I was very fortunate to be included, even though I've worked at the JCC for now 18 years. They had a spot available, and Rachel Zoller was the one who really asked them if I could join, because I haven't had this type of opportunity before. And it's been amazing. It's an 18-month fellowship that you meet with your group over Zoom for most of the year, but we have this 10-day trip to Israel, and that is the crux of the program. We learn from leaders in the field throughout the year while we were there as well, and it's just this great opportunity. And then when we conclude after the year, we are we all have to do a big project. I think my project is going to continue over a year's course with some learning and some other opportunities that we're going to do. So I am going to talk about a lot of the grassroots organizations that we were fortunate to get introduced to. And then just so you know, part of what I want to do is I'm creating this Israel Today series, and I'm going to have programs specifically on organizations, so one at a time, so you can really go in depth with me as to the work that they're doing. But I will do the introduction to it now. So I wanted to start with some maps. It's very hard, even though Israel is a tiny country, it's very hard to show it in a large format. But I did make photocopies. Hopefully everyone got a copy themselves. And I will try to point out as I go along where we went on this trip. This trip, we flew into Tel Aviv. We spent 2 days there, and then we went down to the Gaza envelope, which you can see. This is Gaza, this little strip here. And we spent time around here in the Gaza envelope. In years past, this is the third cohort of this fellowship. Before they went north, but because of what happened on October 7th, we went south so that we could experience the Nova Music Festival site and some kibbutzim that were down there, and talk with people who were directly affected by what happened. And we'll come back to that map of the city of Jerusalem. All right, so let me get my notes out. So our first trip, I wish I could move this. I don't know how to do that, but okay. Oops. So our first day, we went to Neot Kedomin. Is that pronouncing it correctly? Fortunately, we have two Israelis in the room, so they're going to correct all my pronunciation. And Neot Kedomin is the only biblical landscape reserve in the world where you can see and experience the land of the Bible. And we were able to plant oak trees in someone's memory when we went there. So that was a really lovely experience. I don't know, I certainly grew up this way, and I'm sure many of you did too, where in your childhood and your youth, through your adult life, you would donate money to plant a tree in Israel. And it was very special to actually be there and be able to do it in this reserve, it's a fascinating place. Thousands of tons of soil were trucked in and spread on the eroded hillsides. Reservoirs were dug to catch runoff rainwater, and ancient terraces were restored. Habitats were created for such varied species as cedars from the snow-covered mountains of Lebanon and date palms from Sinai Desert oases. Following years of research, they planted hundreds of varieties of biblical and Talmudic plants. They reconstructed and restored ancient olive and wine presses, threshing floors, cisterns, and ritual baths, bringing to life the literal roots of the Bible in the soil of the land of Israel. So the person who started this literally went through the Bible verse for verse, and any plants that were mentioned, he collected, and with his family and many workers and volunteers, they recreated this area that represents everything that's mentioned in the Bible. Very interesting place. And that's right near the airport in Tel Aviv. These are some more photos from that. And this in the bottom left is our cohort. So there were 10 of us who went on the trip. And then Tel Aviv, as soon as I got there and looked out at the beach, I think most of you know I grew up in South Florida. This just reminded me of Miami Beach.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Or beaches in LA. I mean, it looks like that. And what was amazing was this is a picture that we took. This is what life looks like in Israel, even though there is a war going on and every single person in Israel has been affected, knows someone who was killed or kidnapped in the war. What happened on October 7th, oh, thank you, I forgot to do that. They still continue to live life. So you wouldn't know that there's a war going on, but then again, sirens were going off almost daily, and we had to go into shelters a number of times. So these are some interesting photos. In the top left, that is the airport. And everywhere you are in Israel, even though, like I said, people are living life, everywhere there are signs that say, bring them home. And they have pictures of every hostage in the airport, everywhere you go. You'll see this throughout the presentation, all these pictures of saying, bring them home, with pictures and names. That picture in the middle is in Jaffa, when we were walking around in Jaffa. That is a picture of an orange tree. You know, the Jaffa oranges, people are familiar with that. So this is symbolic. So just to give you some history on Jaffa and on Tel Aviv, the walled city of Jaffa is modern day Tel Aviv, Yaffo's only urban center that existed in early modern times. Jaffa was an important port city in the region for millennia. Archaeological evidence shows signs of human settlement there starting in roughly 7500 BC. The city was established around 1800 BC at the latest. Its natural harbor has been used since the Bronze Age. By the time Tel Aviv was founded as a separate city during the Ottoman rule of the region, Jaffa had been ruled by 17 empires, countries, people, groups, before coming under the Ottoman rule in 1515. It had been fought over numerous times. The city is mentioned in ancient Egyptian documents as well as the Hebrew Bible. During the first Aliyah in the 1880s, when Jewish immigrants began arriving in the region in significant numbers, new Jewish neighborhoods were founded outside Jaffa on the current territory of Tel Aviv. Located on the Israeli Mediterranean coastline and with a population of almost 496,000 people, it is the economic and technological center of the country and a global high-tech hub. It has been used as, although Jerusalem is the capital, Tel Aviv, because of all the controversies that have existed over time in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv is where most of the embassies are, and where many countries only recognize Tel Aviv as the capital and refuse to recognize Jerusalem. Although you know that America now does recognize Jerusalem as the capital. Yes.
Is that the only country?
I'm sure there are, I don't know what other countries recognize it. I don't know. I don't know.
People say American, don't wake me up.
Sorry, in the US.
Guatemala.
Yes, Guatemala does. Okay, Guatemala recognizes it. Okay, so the next place we went in Tel Aviv is called ANU, Museum of the Jewish People. And this unique global institution tells the ongoing and extraordinary story of the Jewish people across the globe. Most of these pictures that I show in this slide are from the section that is on what happened on October 7th and local artists' reactions to it. It's very powerful to be in there. After we went there, we went to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. I'm sure most of you have heard of this or seen this on the news. It came into being right after the massacre and people were taken hostage. They created this on public land, which is in front of the museum, but it also is facing the oh God, now I'm forgetting the military, the IDF headquarters. I'm like, what is the name of it? So this hostage right across the street is the IDF headquarters. So they wanted to be front and center, the families. And it's just very powerful. I don't know if you can read in the middle there, but the second to the left, that picture of the menorah, to the right of it, it explains, I'll just see if I can read it. It's called From Darkness to Light. And this is a Hanukkah made from missile fragments. None of the fragments in it caused fatalities. And it's actually a symbol, trying to see that there is light after the darkness. It was an incredibly powerful place to be. You can see they have numerous things going on there, like they set up a long Seder table with all the empty chairs. They set up tables for the Sabbath, for Shabbat, with empty chairs. So there is protests happening there daily, and families are still going out there daily along with other people to support them. They also created, you can see on the top right, they created a tunnel to kind of show you what it's like. I went through it. You can kind of see the picture. Unfortunately, that bar is in the way, but in this tunnel, there's light at both ends of the tunnel, but obviously where the hostages are being held, there is no light, there is no air. It's dark all the time. Yeah, they did, for sure. What I found so moving when I was there is, you see in the top left corner the picture of that man, and it shows his age, and his age crossed the next year, and the age crossed out in the next year. And you see that all over Israel. When in where the Nova Music Festival site was here, there were all these signs of the people who are still in captivity, and the families just continue to mark their birthdays. And they're still being held over 600 days. So after we left Tel Aviv, we headed south, and we went to this place called Adi Negev Nahalat Eran Rehabilitation Village. Now, I know people say that Disneyland is the happiest place on earth, but I would beg to differ, because Adi Negev really is the happiest place on earth. And I'm going to do, in October, I'm going to do a whole talk, and we'll have a great presentation on this remarkable place. But I just want to give you a little background on what Adi Negev is. It was founded in 2005. The 40-acre Adi Negev Nahalat Eran Rehabilitation Village was named to honor the memory of Eran Elmog, the late son and guiding light of founders Didi and Major General Doron Elmog. Fueled by his love for Eran, who was born with severe autism and cognitive disabilities, Doron Elmog led the creation of the one-of-a-kind rehabilitation village in Israel's south, a community where people from diverse backgrounds and all levels of ability can live, heal, and grow together. In addition to caring for and empowering more than 300 residents and special education students with severe disabilities, the expansive and progressive village pioneers cutting-edge therapeutic and recovery services for anyone touched by disability, cultivates empathy and acceptance through education, and provides individuals with disabilities with a framework for personal advancement, social integration, and gainful employment. It features fully accessible residential villas for people with multiple disabilities and complex medical conditions, an intensive care hospital wing, special education school, green care farm, hydrotherapy and sports therapy complexes, therapeutic horse stable and petting zoo, and the Harvey and Gloria Cayley Rehabilitation Medical Center, the first ever rehabilitation hospital in Israel South. So this child that you see on the left was the cutest thing. He loves to spin. That's what he wants to do all the time. And so he just goes on this and people walk by and spin him and he's just ecstatic. And you can see on the right that is a playground. This was obviously taken out in the playground. That's a playground designed for kids who have mobility issues. So they might be in wheelchairs, they might be with walkers. You'll see in this picture, in that top middle picture, that's our group amongst walkers that they have for the children that are specially designed for each child. The man on the left, Ellie Klein, who I'm hoping to see if he can talk with our group in October. Ellie Klein is the lead person, their lead fundraiser in North America, and he's the biggest advocate for Adi Negev. He was telling us that like one of these walkers, that one in the front, could cost up to $8,000. And you know, it's for kids, they outgrow it. But they have kids there who, when they're born, the doctors tell the parents, I'm sorry, but your child will never walk and probably won't live long. And if the child comes here to Adi Negev, they don't ever listen to your child can't. They figure out ways to make it so that your child can. And it could be in a contraption where they're completely supported leaning forward, but they learn to be upright. And it's just incredible the progression that these children have, because they're surrounded by love and people who believe in their abilities and not their disabilities throughout the place. The picture on the right is an opportunity for them to practice walking, and they have different surfaces you can see for them to try to gain some balance by walking on different types of surfaces. The way they do it to encourage the kids to try it is they put toys up on the wall. You can see under that draped awning, those are toys that kids, if they will go over, they can play with on the wall and work their way down. So they're actually practicing walking without even realizing it. You can see pictures, they grow, they have a farm there, so they're growing herbs, they're growing vegetables, and they employ people with disabilities who were told that they'd never be able to get a job, and they employ them to be gardeners, and they're hugely successful. And they have this sense of purpose and a sense of accomplishment. So almost all of the gardeners are people with disabilities themselves. You can see on the bottom right, that is where they have their horse therapy. And I also mentioned that it is, they created, what's it called? The first ever rehabilitation hospital in Israel South. So they've only had rehabilitation hospitals in the north of Israel, none in the south. And they decided this was the place to have it. They finished it just before the October 7th massacre. So now so many people, because of course the massacre, this is right on the border of the Gaza envelope, right on the border of Gaza, just a few miles from Gaza. Miraculously, Hamas insurgents just drove past it and never entered. I mean, they have a gate there, but it wasn't even closed at the time. it's a miracle. It's just a miracle that they decided not to go in. But one of their workers who had gotten off, she wanted to leave work a little early to go home. I think her child was having a birthday, and she left a little early and was at the on the road, and she was killed. But that is the only person they lost. But since the massacre, people from the South have been going to the hospital for rehabilitation, which is just incredible that they're able to do that close to home. And they're able to, what they do is when they're doing rehab, they're doing it side by side with the children and with other adults who have been injured or have some type of disability. It's very humbling, and it is an opportunity for them to interact with people with disabilities, to realize that these are people with personality, beautiful personalities. You know, it just breaks down so many barriers. It's very humbling. And they even have local kindergartens and local schools, young kids come in and do school with their children to break down the barriers. So they're learning not to be judgmental. It's just the most beautiful place you'll ever go to. So this is the site of the Nova Music Festival. This obviously was an incredibly difficult place to go to. I mean, it was, I think all of you should know by now that people were at a rave, at a dance party in the middle of the desert, nothing around. I mean, it's just desert there. And they set up this beautiful music festival. It was fully, you know, it was organized. They had, you know, they went through all the proper channels and had everything set up. And as the sun was rising, they saw all the missiles coming over from Gaza, and then realized too late that there was an attack happening, and they just happened to be right in the path. Hamas didn't even know that this was going on, and all these beautiful people were lost. More than 360 people were killed, and 44 people were kidnapped into Gaza on October 7th here. So this red poppy is symbolic because it grows in this area. And so they've created these poppies to commemorate the area. You can see how close from these maps, how close they were to the Gaza border. And in that middle picture, that's actually me bending down, but with our group leader, Andy Mizell, she's the one who is in charge of the fellowship. So Andy is American. She lived in Israel for 10 years, but has been living back in the States for a while. But we are lighting a memorial candle for her cousin, who was going to get married just a few weeks after this festival. She was there as a volunteer, as a social work volunteer. So it affects, you know, it affected everyone. You know, just no one in the country, I think, was untouched. In the bottom right, there is a picture where many festival goers tried to hide and were killed inside that. But you can see that there's a warning. Every place we went on the trip, the first thing they did, they welcomed us and they told us where the shelters were. Very strange experience. That's not how it normally is in Israel. But every single place, the hotels that we checked in, the first thing they did was tell us where the bomb shelter was. Every place we went, even here, they told us where the bomb shelters were before, at the very beginning.
That is underground.
No, none of them are underground. No, I mean, it was some of them. I shouldn't say none of them. But most of the ones we went to, like in the hotels, it's in the stairwell, or if they have a basement room. We were, our second to last night there, we were eating dinner at a restaurant in Jerusalem in a popular area, and a siren went off. And we had to go across the street into an apartment complex, into their stairwell. And that time we actually saw the missile.
Wow.
Yeah. It, you know, I think it affected different people differently. For me, when we arrived, and even the day, honestly, the day that we were leaving, I woke up the morning I was flying to New York to meet my group to fly to Israel. And that was the morning that the bomb landed, the missile landed right by the Tel Aviv airport. Just missed the, I mean, it was right by the airport. It just missed the runway. And that's what I woke up to the day that I was leaving. But most people say that, I mean, every Israeli will tell you that 99% of the missiles are intercepted by the Iron Dome. So, and then they also say that they don't, and it's mostly the Houthis in Yemen who are sending these missiles, and they usually don't do it 2 days in a row. But while we were there, there were missiles going more than 2 days in a row. So, I mean, I listened to the Israelis. How many missiles are really hitting inside Israel? Not many today. I mean, they were completely unprepared for October 7th for that attack, but now they're fully prepared. So personally, I wasn't worried. But there were a few people on my trip who were very nervous while we were there. And nothing's right, it's personal. So from the Nova Music Festival site, we went to Kibbutz Mifalsim, where we met these two lovely women who were part of a group called Terenu, which means Our Turn. It's a new initiative of the nonprofit initiative Brothers and Sisters for Israel, which encourages young people to settle in the Gaza envelope, to rebuild it. So it took them a while to put this together, but they are doing, work in the area. The woman on the right, the Ron, is a teacher. And the woman on the left is, she does a couple things, but she's a dancer by trade. So she teaches some dance classes and works in the shop on the kibbutz. They had a hard time finding a kibbutz that was comfortable to welcome them, because by giving them space to live, it was acknowledging the people who they lost. This is all in the Gaza envelope, and this is where the main attack happened. And hundreds and hundreds of people were killed there, and every kibbutz was affected. So they had a hard time having a kibbutz that was willing to accept them, because it was too painful. And they're still trying to be accepted as part. They want to be part of the community in the kibbutz, but it's harder. It's just a little harder for them. This is one of the shelters on the kibbutz. So they paint them up. It's part of. They try to make it less scary, I think, for the children. But you can see on the inside of the door that there's a commemoration for some people who were killed. This kibbutz, miraculously, here, I'll read about it. Mefalsim is a kibbutz in southern Israel, located near the western Negev city of Sderot and the Gaza Strip. In October of 2023, Mefalsim was attacked by Hamas as part of the attack that started the Gaza war. The kibbutz's security team battled the attackers for hours, holding them off until IDF reinforcements arrived and cleared away additional Hamas gunmen approaching the kibbutz. Several members of the kibbutz were injured, but there were no fatalities inside the community, which is a miracle, although at least 3 civilians were killed outside the kibbutz gates. Now, I don't know how many movies about October 7th you have all watched, but people from the Nova Music Festival, which was right nearby all these kibbutzim, were running, they were fleeing, and they were trying to find safe places to hide. So they could have been the civilians who were killed outside, or just people who were outside going to work or walking their dog, or this is how so many people were killed. But this is a beautiful program initiative that they're doing, trying to help rebuild the Gaza Strip with these young people. So next we went into the desert. Every day on this fellowship, we had a theme. So this was day 4, and the theme was making the desert bloom, the Zionist dream. So we started with a morning walk through the Ein Avdat Nature Reserve. Ein Avdat is a canyon in the Negev Desert of Israel, south of Kibbutz Sede Boker. Archaeological evidence shows that Ein Avdat was inhabited by Nabateans and Catholic monks. Numerous springs at the southern opening of the canyon empty into deep pools and a series of waterfalls. It's really a beautiful place.
I'm sorry, I turned it off.
Clearly not. You thought you turned it off.
I'm sorry, but now it's off.
All right.
I apologize.
That's okay. So it really is a beautiful place, and we had this peaceful walk. It was so peaceful to be in there. It's a deep canyon, and to actually be around water in the desert was so refreshing. And that's a cave on the bottom right. So those are all around. Actually, while we were there, there was a young military group training there. You see that a lot. And from there, we went to another remarkable place, which I'm also going to do another presentation just on this incredible grassroots organization. So this is Atid Bamidbar in Ramah, which is outside of Yerucham in the south. And the Bedouin woman's name is Bashita. And the founder and director of Atid Bamidbar is Debbie Golan, who is an American woman who moved to Israel quite a while ago. She's been there, I think, at least 30 years. So Atid Bamidbar grapples with a lack of solidarity and sense of belonging among Israel's various tribes. Believing that diversity is a source of strength, they showcase populations whose stories are not well known in the Israeli mainstream and create connections between individuals, groups, organizations, and municipalities in the Negev and beyond. Israel's attempts to provide Hebrew courses for Negev Bedouin women as a first step toward employment have failed. Bedouin patriarchal norms limit a woman's ability to leave home for study or work without her husband's permission. But even if she could, government-sponsored classes are conducted in Jewish towns or distant Bedouin towns inaccessible from remote villages, lacking public transportation. And the courses require large group learning, a format that, as indicated by high dropout rates, daunts first-time learners, many of whom have never set foot in a classroom in their lives. So let me tell you about Bachita. She's a Bedouin woman in this village. You can see what the village looks like. My sister, I think most of you know, my sister is a doctor on the Hopi and, oh my God, why can't I think of the name of, the Navajo, thank you. Jeez. The Navajo reservation, and these Bedouin villages reminded me of what the Navajo reservation looks like. I mean, it's like nothing, and then it's ramshackle shacks or something on the side of the road. This is actually a village that she lives in that looks like that, Ramah, just outside of Yerucham, which is a bigger city in a low-income area in the south, I would say. So Bedouins are Israeli citizens, and she grew up, she's clearly a very smart woman, but she grew up in a family, in a very traditional family, and she was never allowed to go to school. She would see her brother going off to school, and she would ask her father every year if she could go this time, and he would say, next time, right now you just take care of the sheep. And she learned eventually that she was never going to be able to go to school because she was a girl. Yeah. And the girls don't have those privileges in the tribes that in specifically her tribe is a very traditional one.
Is it still that way?
Yes, it's still that way. Yeah. And so when she was 15, she was married off to a man who was 35 years older than her, 30 years older than her, something. She came back home after a year, after she was able to get a divorce from him, which is very unusual, but from what she implied, he was very abusive. I think sexually and physically. I mean, she was a 15-year-old girl and he was a man. And so she was able to come home and get divorced. But as a divorced woman, she had very little options. So she was married off again at 16 as a second wife this time. But this person was 25 years older than her, not 30. But she was actually fortunate because the first wife that she, I guess, lived with and her daughter were very kind to her. And they taught her how to read and write, which is all she really wanted. She craved education. So she learned how to read and write in Arabic and studied the Quran and became very religious. And she said she started to wear the habib, and she would read as much as she could get her hands on. But then after what happened in Egypt, a few of her cousins were killed with one of the uprisings there, and it was Muslims killing Muslims, and she lost some of her faith. She still was religious, but she decided she was no longer going to dress in the religious garments, and she decided that she wanted to get more independence. She wanted to learn Hebrew because she wanted to be able to interact in a larger society and to access, no one in the women couldn't access the hospitals because nobody spoke Hebrew. They couldn't access doctors. Nobody spoke Hebrew in their village. They are entitled to some compensation, from the government if they are caring for older relatives, but nobody in her village was able to access any of this. And of course, her husband wasn't happy about any of this. He I guess he tolerated her learning Arabic. He wasn't thrilled about her learning Hebrew, but she was determined. And so she somehow learned about this organization, Atid Bamidbar, and she traveled down at first to try and go to some Hebrew classes, but she was very intimidated. She had never gone to school in her life, and it was very difficult also. So I'm not sure if they must have given her a laptop somehow and a solar panel. And she started doing these lessons at home at night after she put her children to bed, after she finished all her chores. And she said she would sit by the fire because she only had an outside fireplace, an outside kitchen area. There's a picture. Yes, that top middle picture, that's where we met. That's her kitchen, her living, where not her bedroom, but that is outside. And she would sit by that fire at night and study. And she said she would be shivering with cold. She'd be wearing all her clothes and shivering because it gets cold there at night in the desert. And the smoke would be killing her eyes, but she was determined. And after I think about 2 years, she finished the course and learned Hebrew. And she has become an advocate for the women in her village, trying to encourage them to study Hebrew and to study Arabic so that they could be a little more independent. Her second husband, she has gotten divorced from her second husband. I'm sure, I don't know who initiated it. My guess is him. But she didn't want us to mention that to anyone. She didn't want anyone in her village to find out. So I think that was fresh. But she's very proud, and unfortunately that bar is kind of blocking it. She's very proud of that library that she created in her house. She has Arabic books, Hebrew books, and English books for the children. And all the children in the village are encouraged to come and sit in there anytime they want, and they can use those books. And she is now teaching some of the women in her village. And this is part of what Atid Bamidbar is doing, encouraging people to teach others in their village. So she's now trying to teach other women in her village to learn to read and write in both Hebrew and Arabic.
What about the little girls?
So that really depends. I mean, she is still in a very traditional village. The men do not approve of what she's doing in the village, and some of the women do not approve either, but some do. And she has a daughter and two boys. The older boy wants to go into the military and make a career of that. She's really encouraging them to choose whatever they want, but to be independent and go to school. Her daughter goes to school. Her daughter wants to become a doctor. The older son wants to go into the military and get a career in the military. And the younger son wants to be a soccer star because he's young. But this was one of the most incredible days meeting this woman. I walked away and I said, in 10 years, this woman is going to be in parliament. She is so determined, so driven, so smart and courageous. So courageous. I don't, but like I said, I'm going to do, I think in July, I'm going to do a program on this, and hopefully we'll be able to maybe get on, she won't be able to join us, but maybe we could get the woman who started Atif Bamidbar to come in, or I'll just have more information. And what I want to do, one of the purposes of this Israel Today series that I want to start is also to raise money that we could donate to these organizations to help encourage more independence for people. So from there, we went to Ben Gurion Research Institute. This place was also fascinating. I can't tell you how many places we were going to that I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of dry. And then you go and you're like, that was just amazing. I mean, that picture on the right is one of the people who lead this, who run this institute, showing us Ben Gurion's journal from when they were about to, go for independence, when they were writing the Declaration of Independence for Israel, to become its own state and going through the war. And it was just amazing. I mean, that is his journal. You can see that bottom left picture is just the boxes of everything that he had. So I'll tell you a little bit about this. David Ben Gurion was Israel's first prime minister and leader of the Zionist movement in the pre-state years. He was among those who wrote Israel's Declaration of Independence and shaped the country's image as a Jewish and democratic state. He also led Israel to victory during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The archive includes thousands of documents, photographs, and videos involving Ben Gurion from his childhood to his death. In many ways, the Ben Gurion archive is like the presidential libraries of the founding fathers in the US. The Ben Gurion Archive was founded in the 1970s as part of the Ben Gurion Heritage Institute to commemorate the old man. The archive is located in the Negev, close to Ben Gurion's desert home in Seder Boker. They maintain Ben Gurion's private archive and provide access to it, in accordance with the Ben Gurion law and the archives law. They gather documents about his personality, achievements, and work from other sources, preserve them, and make them accessible to the public. They also take in additional collections about personalities who worked with him or left their mark on the Zionist movement and the state of Israel. So you can go through this. People can go in and do research there anytime, access these. That bottom right picture is a picture of some ibex that were all around the area. We also went to his grave, which is right there. Ben Gurion's dream was to settle the desert. And so he always stayed in the desert. That's where his home was. And that's where he wanted to be laid to rest as well. And that's why they have the institute there, right near his home. And he had the vision. I mean, you see that picture in the bottom middle, that's what it looks like. It is just desert there. And yet on the right, you can see what they created. So that is the brilliance of Israel and how it was settled by the Jewish people. And this place is one of the reasons why it looks green, why Israel is so green today. This place is also just fascinating. The Ramat Negev Desert Agro Research Center. This is where they research how to do arid farming. And what they learn here, they share with the whole world. I mean, this gentleman, who was just one of the most interesting characters I've ever met, the one on the top there, he was a friend of Ben Gurion's. Ben Gurion, he wanted to become a truck repairman, like, you know, a mechanic. And Ben Gurion said to him, no, you'll go into farming. They were neighbors, and he's the one who encouraged him to learn all about farming techniques in the desert. He's like, this isn't what I want to do. He said, this is what you'll do. And he travels all over the world now. He went out to the Hopi Nation and taught them how to do some farming. And I mean, like, he travels all over the world, in Africa, in the Americas, all over. So let me tell you about Ramat Negev. Ramat Negev Desert Agro Research and Innovation Center is one of Israel's leading facilities in desert agriculture. Founded in 1981 in the heart of the Israeli desert, the center focuses on growing food in semi-arid and arid areas. They also practice watering with salt water, all different levels to see what a crop can tolerate. Their farmers grow various crops, including 70% of the Israeli cherry tomato produce, olives, strawberries, dairy products, wine, grapes, exotic mushrooms, blueberries, pineapples, Asian greens, potatoes, and much more, all on arid land. You can see on the bottom right, the strawberries. They grow the strawberries above ground. This is what they're practicing. And every row was a different variety with it, or it was fed with different types of water or different types of fertilizer. And they test every single one with the most minute changes to see what's possible. In the last 4 decades, the center has gained immense experience researching solutions for profitable and advanced agriculture. Their goal is to continuously improve crop diversity and yields by optimizing water supply, various soil types, fertilization, pest control, and other resources. Ramat Negev has also become a leader in renewable energy, producing 45% of the renewable energy utilized by Israel. Their state-of-the-art renewable energy enterprise includes 3 major solar energy plants located near the village of Ashalim. You can see in this picture here, that is actually a giant solar tower. It has something like, I forgot what he said, something like 250 mirrors that face this tower to create this solar energy. I mean, you can see how far away we are and how bright it is. It was amazing. And of course, the story that he was telling us about how they were able to get these mirrors cleaned all the time was absolutely hilarious. But it's just amazing what they're doing. So throughout the years, the center has supported agricultural activities in different countries. Their profound experience managing agricultural projects and establishing research centers and greenhouses brings a comparative advantage and proven success in desert agriculture to the world. So I just want to, if I can see, wait, I did bring. Well, I thought I brought my reading glasses, but clearly I didn't. But so this system on the left, let's see if I can read this. I cannot. Yeah. Yeah, those are not reading glasses. I can't see what these are. It's okay. No, I don't need very strong. All right, let me try these. Honestly, it's just too small to read, but I want to, so this picture on the left, on the top, what that sign is explaining is the system that I do not have a picture of, but it's, oh, thank you. That's what I was looking for. So what they had was a series of grapes that they were growing, different types of grapes, and they had solar panels over the grapes. And they're trying to see if they can maximize shade where it's movable. So these solar panels are movable so they can maximize shade and light at different times while they're gaining energy from the solar panels. So that's just like one of the things that they were doing. That top left picture is how they control all of the grapes that they were growing. That's the fertilizer. That is, that's the control panel, for the fertilizer, the water, the different types of water that they're trying out with these grapes, different levels of salinity to see if they could grow crops with saline water. It's really just fascinating. And so many farmers learn from what they do there. They take this technology, they try it all out, and then they share it with the farmers, all that information. So then on day 5, we arrived in Jerusalem. And we walked through the old city, the Cardo, which is the ancient Roman street, and the Kotel. The Kotel, as you know, is the Western Wall, which I have. Okay. So I talked all about the Western Wall the other day at our Shavuot program, but the Western Wall is the retaining wall from the Second Temple that was built in Jerusalem. And it is on Mount Moriah, which is the holiest place. When we pray, when we set up synagogues anywhere around the world, the ark where the Torahs are always facing Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem or in Israel, all the synagogues, you pray towards the Wailing Wall, to the Western Wall. But these are different views of Israel and of Jerusalem and what it looks like when we were walking around. They're forever doing archaeological digs. So you can see in that picture on the bottom right, the second in, that is, they're just going down and discovering different layers and different layers of history as they travel down. But that is right in this kind of mall on the bottom right, this beautiful mall that you could go into that has stores, and it's one of the ancient malls or areas where they would shop. So the stores were old stalls, but they've renovated it, obviously. But that is a picture of what they're still excavating. They will forever be excavating. But these are just beautiful. Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, is so beautiful, and it's meaningful for all different religions. You can see the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you can see the Golden Dome, and you can see just the beautiful archaeology and what it's like there. These are just some scenes from what we saw on the top right. That is when we went into like the shuk, the market area on Shabbat. It was total chaos, total chaos. But the smells were incredible of all the baked goods and the spices, and everyone was shopping for Shabbat. This was Friday afternoon before Shabbat starts. So people were picking up the last things that they needed. That picture to the left of it, I loved we were getting lunch somewhere at like a mall area. This was in not the old part of Jerusalem. And there was this religious man, this Haredi man who was hitchhiking. It's very funny. And in the top middle there, you could see some graffiti that we saw. I don't know if you could tell what it says, but it says FUBB. So clearly, many of the Israelis are not happy with what is going on in Israel, with the war that continues and continues and continues. It is not a popular war. And it is very clear that what most people want the top priority to be is bringing home the hostages. And what Netanyahu, whose nickname is Bibi, his top priority is this war. And a lot of people are not happy with that. So you see a lot of graffiti and you hear a lot of people talking, lashing out, not happy. That bottom left picture is when we were, the first siren that went off when we were there and we had to go into a shelter. So that's my friends and I in the stairwell, which you have to go into for 10 minutes, we were told. So those are just some pretty pictures. And then we spent Shabbat. Actually, we went for a Shabbat dinner. We went to a rabbi's house. So the fellowship is called the Martin Pear Fellowship, started by Martin Pear's daughter. Martin Pear's son is an Orthodox rabbi who lives in Israel. And we went to his house for our Shabbat dinner, which we were all dreading because we're thinking, oh, an Orthodox rabbi's house. We don't know what this is going to be like. We were warned from the previous cohort that they didn't leave until like 12 o'clock at night. Dinner didn't start until like, 9 o'clock at night. So we were all kind of dreading this. And it was one of the best times we had on the whole trip. The family was so sweet, so funny. They have 5 children. 4 of the kids were there. They ranged in age from 8 to, I think, about 25 or 26. One of the daughters was in the military right now because, everyone in Israel has to go into the military from age after they finish school, so age 18 to 21. So one daughter was still in the military and one daughter was in grad school getting her degree in nursing. The 8-year-old was the cutest thing I've ever seen. He was so cute. And so the way that they ran their Shabbat dinner was the father would ask questions and he would always direct the questions to this 8-year-old who was so confident because this is every Friday night for him. And I think they have guests, large groups, very often. So he was so cocky and confident and so cute, but gave like these heartfelt answers. And then we go around and, talk about meaningful things for ourselves. When he cut the challah, the way he and many families pass the challah around these huge tables is you throw the piece of challah. So he was very experienced. He stacked one challah on top of the other. He cut them that way. And then he was tossing the challah all the way down to the other end of the table. It was such a fun, beautiful night. Both parents were Americans, so everyone spoke great English. And it was a beautiful evening and it flew by and we were all sad when it was 11:30 and it was time to leave. So this trip was full of lots of surprises. So here are my pictures of the Western Wall. I knew I had those. So you can see in that bottom right picture, those white umbrellas. That's actually the dividing line between the women's section and the men's section. Obviously, the men's section is larger because, but yeah, it's just such a powerful place to be. And people leave notes in the cracks in the stones. I had mentioned this before, that I just found that fascinating that they actually remove those notes twice a year and bury them. I always wondered what they did with so many notes. So on Saturday morning, there was an optional trip to go into the Christian quarter and I of course chose to do that. And this was fascinating to me. It was so fascinating. And what we spent almost the whole time at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Christian Quarter, and I was completely ignorant. And when we walked out, I was just fascinated by my total ignorance of Christianity. I mean, I just really, it was eye-opening to me. And it was one of those moments of awe, because I'm always, like, I can't believe it when people are ignorant about Judaism, which is my religion. And I learned so much about my own ignorance of other religions when I was there. So it was one of those moments where you learn so much and you realize how much you want to learn still. So I'm just going to, for those of you who don't know some of the history of this church, I just want to tell you a little bit about it. So the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a 4th century church in the Christian Quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. The site of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is identified as the place of both the crucifixion and the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth. The church has long been a major pilgrimage center for Christians worldwide. The status quo, an understanding between religious communities dating to 1757, applies to the site. Control of the church itself is shared among several Christian denominations and secular entities in complicated arrangements, essentially unchanged for over 160 years, and some for much longer. The main denominations sharing property over parts of the church are the Roman Catholic, Greek Orthodox, Armenian Apostolic, Coptic, Syriac, and the Ethiopian Orthodox churches. Directly adjacent to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the Church of the Redeemer, marking a Lutheran presence at the site. The status quo stems from a firman, which is a decree of Ottoman Sultan Osman III in 1757 that preserved the division of ownership and responsibilities of various Christian holy places. Further firmans issued in 1852 and 1853 affirmed that no changes could be made without consensus from all 6 Christian communities. These firmans received international recognition in Article 9 of the Treaty of Paris. So nothing can be done in this church in the common areas. Each sect has its own area that they control within the church. And of course, the churches with more money, those areas are in much better repair than the ones with less money. The Ethiopian church is actually kind of separate from all of this, which is a whole other story. But so many of the common areas are untouched and kind of falling apart. And then we get to the immovable ladder in the front, which you can see in the top left picture. Outside that window, there's a little ladder going up to the window, which is quite famous, and I knew nothing about this. The immovable ladder is a wooden ladder leaning against a window of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Old City, protected from removal or alteration under the law of the status quo. The ladder rests on a ledge and is attached to the right window of the second tier of the facade owned by the Armenian Apostolic Church. It is used as a symbol of interconfessional disputes within Christianity. Its presence in its current location signifies the adherence to an agreement among 6 Christian denominations who collectively own the church not to move, repair, or alter anything in the church without the consent of all 6 denominations. So it's something like the ladder rests on part of one denomination and the window belongs to the other denomination or something. So nobody's allowed to move this ladder. And it's a wooden ladder that, because it's in the desert, it's preserved. If it was in New Orleans, it would have rotted a long time ago. But because it's there, it's been there for forever, for hundreds of years, and it will stay there because nobody can touch it. I just thought it was fascinating. And that bottom picture on the right is the tombs. And they, I mean, it's really amazing. It's one of these places where history really comes alive. being able to go down into these tombs, which, date back to the time of Jesus. And some of the sites are just really fascinating and beautiful. They have the picture of the binding of Isaac, which is meaningful to so many different religions and important in Christianity. And it's a beautiful mosaic of that. So very interesting, very, very interesting. Just made me want to learn so much more. All right, and then this was day 7, Legends of the Desert, and I describe it as the best Mother's Day ever. We started the day by going to Masada, then we went down to the Dead Sea, and then after that we went ATV driving, and I got to drive an ATV, which I've never done before, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was the best day. It was just fun. But I will give you the background of Masada for those of you who are not familiar. This was Herod's fortress above the Dead Sea. Masada is an ancient fortress in southern Israel's Judean desert. It's on a massive plateau overlooking the Dead Sea. A cable car and a long winding path climb up to the fortifications, built around 30 BC. Among the ruins are King Herod's palace, which sprawls over 3 rock terraces, and a Roman-style bathhouse with mosaic floors. You can see in that top middle picture, it's a rendering of what the fortress looks like. And just so you know, Masada normally has 750,000 visitors a year. When we were there, we were the only group up there. There were a couple of other stragglers, but this is what tourism is like right now in Israel. Just as a side note, every time any of us bought something, the person selling it to us thanked us for being there, because they're hurting. I mean, it's like COVID all over again. They have no tourism and they're really suffering. So Masada is most renowned for its role during the First Jewish-Roman War in 66 to 73 CE, when it became the final holdout of Jewish rebels following the destruction of Jerusalem. A group led by Eliezer ben Yair defended the site against the Roman 10th Legion. The Romans laid siege by building a circumvallation wall and a massive ramp, which we were able to see. It still exists. When the walls were breached, the Romans found nearly 1,000 inhabitants had died by mass suicide, a claim that remains debated among historians. In modern times, the story of Masada was interpreted as a symbol of heroism that became influential in early Israeli national identity. Excavations led by archaeologist Yigal Yadin in the 1960s uncovered remarkably preserved remains, including Herod's palaces, storerooms with food remnants still in them, ritual baths, a synagogue, chapel, columbaria, scrolls, and pottery shards bearing names. One inscribed Ben Yair, who was the leader of the group at that time, possibly linked to the final days of the defenders. The surrounding Roman siege works and bases remain visible and are among the most intact examples of Roman military engineering. And today, Masada is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of Israel's most popular tourist attractions. The picture on the right in the middle is, the engineering was incredible up there. I mean, this is a plateau. You can see from the big picture what it looks like there. I mean, it's just total desert, and this is a plateau above the desert, and how they were able to have water was a feat of engineering. So that picture over here, this is how they would capture runoff water. And the water would travel through there from when there were big rainstorms, and they'd catch it in a cistern, which they had these cisterns around. I'm wondering if I have any pictures. No. So then they had, caves, kind of like caves below ground with like a cave-like entrance, and that's the cisterns where they would hold the water. It's just total engineering how they were able to capture and live up there. And by the way, this picture, the picture of the Israeli flag, which I'm just going to scroll back to real fast because I had it at the beginning. So you see the picture of that flag that was taken on Masada, and you see all the stickers around the poles. Those are stickers of hostages. Those are all stickers of hostages still being held.
Israeli hostages being held in other places.
In Gaza.
In Gaza.
Yeah.
They held in Gaza.
Okay, so then from there we went on to the Dead Sea, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Dead Sea and the Dead Sea mud. So there we are covered in mud. In that middle picture, I'm the one on the left. The smallest. This was a group of very tall Jewish women. I don't know where they came from. Never met such tall Jewish women. All right, so I'm going to give you the background on the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is a landlocked salt lake bordered by Jordan to the east, the West Bank to the west, and Israel to the southwest. As of 2025, the lake's surface is 1,443 feet below sea level, making its shores the lowest land-based elevation on Earth. It is 997 feet deep, the deepest hypersaline lake in the world. With a salinity of 34.2% measured in 2011, it is one of the world's saltiest bodies of water, 9.6 times as salty as the ocean, and has a density of 1.24 kilograms per liter, which makes swimming similar to floating. I couldn't find the picture of us floating, but I put in a picture there so you can see what it's like. You can literally just sit up on the water. The Dead Sea is receding at a swift rate. They say the Dead Sea is dying. Its surface area today is 234 square miles, having been 410 square miles in 1930. So 410 to 234 today. The water of Wadi Hassa is now completely consumed in Jordan. The Jordan River, which passes through the Sea of Galilee, has been substantially diverted. It currently only contributes about 1/6 of the inflow to the Dead Sea, less than direct rainfall. So there are organizations, environmental groups that are really working hard to get Jordan to release more water into the Dead Sea so that it doesn't disappear. But of course, this is international politics mostly at play. So. And this is ATV driving in the Judean desert. So much fun. In the middle, that picture shows, it looks like we're walking into a cave, and you can see on the right side in the middle, that's us sitting in it. That was actually a water cavern that in biblical times, in ancient times, somebody filled that with water. Like they controlled that. A family controlled it. They would fill with water during rainfall, and they took care of that cave to keep it clean. And they sold the water to people traveling across the desert for their animals. That was water for animals that was kept in there. And you can see how the cave was chiseled out and reinforced in areas. The guy that you see us with, his name is Ido, and he was our guard on our trips. So we had a guard with us the entire time. And he was absolutely adorable. He just finished his time in the Army and is doing this, getting hired out as a guard for different groups that come. His English was fantastic, and he was in the process of applying to college. You can see that bottom right picture is an old World War II bunker, actually, built by the British. And of course, in the desert, everything is completely preserved. And this was at a music festival that we went to right after ATV driving. We drove up to it, and this was in the desert. This guy played phenomenal music, and if this will work, I'm going to play a little music for you. Let's see if I can make this work. How do I make this go up? There we go.
Rachel, that's a lovely picture.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody got that. I was like, ooh, that is a nice picture.
Very nice, yeah.
Okay. Let's see if this works. It's not working. Wait. No. Yeah, I don't know. The sound is not working, unfortunately. I know. I'm sorry, because the music is just amazing. Yeah, so he brought instruments from all over the world, and then each one of us played an instrument. It was really fun. And then from there, the next day, day 8, we went to Yad Vashem. This day, the theme was collective memory. So these are pictures of Yad Vashem, which is the World Holocaust Remembrance Center. In the middle, you can see this was from the path that planted trees for the righteous among nations, and that is the non-Jews who helped save Jewish lives during the Holocaust. And this was the one for Schindler. The architecture was really interesting. On the left, that's when you walk in, that's kind of the architecture. Underneath you, that's the view from underneath. Actually, that's the view from above ground, but you see that underneath. So Yad Vashem was established in 1953 by an act of the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament. It is the World Holocaust Remembrance Center and is entrusted with Holocaust commemoration, documentation, research, and education, remembering the 6 million Jews murdered by the German Nazis and their collaborators, commemorating the destroyed Jewish communities, the ghetto and resistance fighters, and honoring the righteous among nations who risked their lives to rescue Jews during the Holocaust. When you exit the museum, you are faced with the rolling hills of Jerusalem, light after darkness, beauty after morning. So that picture on the right is when you exit, that's what you see. And that was purposeful. The last exhibit that you see when you go through the main part of the museum is, I don't know how many stories tall it is, probably 3 stories tall, and it is books in a room filled with books with every name of people who were killed in the Holocaust, and they still are missing 1 million names, they say. But they're still trying to find those names to make sure everyone is recorded. From there, we went to Mount Herzl Military Cemetery. This mountain is a site of major national importance for Israel and the Jewish people. The annual official state transition ceremony that marks the conclusion of Memorial Day for Israel's fallen and commences Israel's Independence Day festivities takes place here. And the cemetery is divided into several sections. Great leaders of the nation, Israel's presidents, prime ministers, speakers of the Knesset, and other dignitaries decided upon by the government are interred here, as well as other soldiers who have fallen in other wars. It's actually massive, and they have different sections for every war. And the newest one, sadly, is the war in Gaza right now. So you can see a picture on the bottom left, and that's what one of the graves look like, because it's so fresh to the families, and they're still adorning, just putting up pictures and their favorite objects and their favorite drinks and snacks, and it's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But it is a beautiful place. So from there, we went to an area called Lod, which is kind of in the middle of the country. and we visited with some people from the Abraham Initiatives, which is another very interesting nonprofit that we were able to work with or learn from, I should say. And that picture on the bottom right, you can see that's what it looked like on most days when we went to visit these different organizations. We'd sit around and learn together, and it was very powerful. The Abraham Initiatives is a Jewish Israeli and Palestinian Israeli organization that advances social inclusion and equal rights for Israel's Palestinian citizens by influencing public policy, shaping public opinion, and demonstrating practical models for a shared society. They envision Israel as a democratic state, homeland of the Jewish people and all its citizens, that guarantees and protects the full citizenship and equal rights of its Palestinian citizens, where Jewish and Palestinian Israelis co-create a cohesive, inclusive society, and that exists peacefully alongside an independent, sovereign Palestinian state. The Abraham Initiatives aims to create widespread positive social change in the field of Jewish-Arab relations in Israel. To this end, their initiatives focus on stimulating policy change in both national and local government, as well as state institutions and other key areas in Israeli society, utilizing their methodology of advocacy through action. Their initiatives present models for policy change which can be adopted and tailored on a national scale. This is not an area that is high income, it's low income. They have a very large Arab population here, but the contrasts in what is available for Jews versus Arabs is pretty stark. And what they're trying to advocate for is more rights so that there's equality in services that are available that will help bring tensions down between the different populations. If they could have services that are available to all, then people will be happier living side by side with each other. They will learn how to respect each other and build trust. We met with this woman on the left, in the bottom left. Her name is Ruth Lewin-Chen, and she's the Deputy Executive Director of Programs. But we also met with her co-director, Lama Yassin, who is a Muslim woman who's the co-director of Safe Communities in Ramla and Lod. And we met with another woman, another Muslim woman who works in this organization. One of the questions that someone in our group asked was about playgrounds, because we walked around the town, and she asked, well, do the children in the Arab community, do they have playgrounds to play in? She asked, where are the playgrounds? She's like, oh, these are the nice playgrounds. And she said, well, are there playgrounds for children in the more Arab neighborhoods? And she said, no. The nice playgrounds are for the Jews. And she said, well, can the Muslims go and Muslim children play there as well? And she said, I mean, there's no law stating that they can't, but they're not welcome. It wouldn't be a comfortable situation. These are the barriers that they're working to break down. They're not trying to, they're not trying to change all of the politics and everything. They're just trying to bring in a more equal sense of community in the society so that it can create opportunities for conversation and mutual respect. Another place we went to that day that I don't have pictures of is Beit Shemesh Matnas. Matnas is a community center. So we went to the equivalent of our JCC in this community, but it was very interesting. I mean, to hear the statistics on this. The neighborhood, Beit Shemesh, is underserved and economically struggling. Apparently they considered a level 2 out of 10 on the economic structure. But it also has one of the highest birth rates in Israel, with 30 births per day.
Oh, gosh.
The community is growing rapidly and resources are struggling to keep up. They currently have 6 community centers, 24,000 children in aftercare and summer camping, 5,667 workers. They offer welfare for seniors and special needs, have youth centers, early childhood centers, and community festivals. They are doing so much work in the community centers. They're serving an incredibly young population, and they're doing a great job. They have a large budget that they have managed to get the money from the federal government and through different agencies, and they're doing their work to try and serve the whole community like we do here at our JCC, but it's a different population there. We also went to a Haredi, which Haredi is the ultra-Orthodox, very religious sect. And we went to an art shelter gallery and talked with 2 women there. One was a Haredi woman who started this art gallery in a shelter. So she can't lock it really because the shelter needs to be open to the community. But it is a place that is available for ultra-Orthodox people to actually create art. It's mainly men, but they're trying to have some art classes for women separately and men separately. It's the first one of its kind there. It's the only Haredi art gallery in the world. It's housed in a bomb shelter. So we met these 2 women, one who actually has a PhD, which is also unheard of for a Haredi woman to have a PhD, but she has a PhD and she started this art gallery. The other woman was fascinating, and we will be having an in-service in Israel Today talk on this other program called Lo Tishtak, which was started by a Haredi woman, an ultra-Orthodox woman, who, as she explained it, the women go to work, the men stay home and study, or go to school and study. So the women have to go to work. So she went to work, and she was working as doing some, I forgot what it was, but in some high tech, and she had access to a computer and the internet, which she had never had access to before. And in that community, they really don't allow for people to use the internet, but she met this thing called Google, and she was just fascinated by it. So she and Google would go and, learn about all different things. I mean, it's like the Bedouin woman who was never allowed any education. This was a very protected society as well. So she got on the internet and started learning about things in the world. And then she learned about this thing called Facebook. And so she opened up an account on Facebook and started, trying to interact with some other Haredi people who might secretly be on Facebook. And she created this Facebook group. And while she was doing this, I mean, this was over the course of, I don't know how many, a couple of years or something, someone mentioned something about sexual abuse. And she was completely ignorant to this topic. She fortunately was never a victim of sexual abuse, didn't know anyone. They certainly don't talk about it. No one talks about that in this community. And so she put it out there on her Facebook. She asked if anyone else had ever experienced something like this. And she started to get all these messages from people who had experienced sexual abuse, not only women, a lot of men. Because they're in these situations with these rabbis who the rabbis have full control in these communities. So everything, any issue a family has, a person has, you go to the rabbi and the rabbi helps sort the problem out for you. They don't deal with the government. They don't deal with the police. Everything is internal in these communities. So she started to learn about all these people who had been victims of sexual abuse, and she felt like she had to do something with this information. And what she ultimately did was she started this group, this nonprofit called Lo Tishtak, and they were instrumental in exposing someone when In 2021, following the Chaim Walder scandal and the reactions of the Haredi leadership to his suicide, the movement awoke with great force, and many Haredi activists joined the call for change and the cessation of silence in the Haredi society. So Chaim Walder was a huge figure in the community, a rabbi, and it turned out he had been abusing many boys over the years, and nobody could do anything about it because who do you talk to? He's the rabbi. He was the head rabbi. And it eventually blew up and was totally exposed, and he committed suicide as a result of the exposure. And this just helped bring the movement into the public eye, although she still fights and fights and fights to get it out there, this movement, but it's fascinating. I mean, this is another woman that I was thinking in 10 years, this woman's going to be in parliament. I mean, the bravery, the courage, the chutzpah of these women to stand up to these, to break these societal norms is just incredible. So on our last day, we went to the National Library, which is another thing that I thought, oh, this is going to be so boring. But it was another thing that was so fascinating. Oh, my God, so fascinating. The National Library of Israel is the library dedicated to collecting the cultural treasures of Israel and of Jewish heritage. The library holds more than 5 million books and is located in the government complex near the Knesset. The National Library owns the world's largest collections of Hebraic and Judaic and is the repository of many rare and unique manuscripts, books, and artifacts. So you can see in that middle picture on the top, these are how they display some of these rare books. It was incredible. And the picture on the top right is what their reading room looks like. And it's 2 or 3 stories. The library also possesses some of Isaac Newton's manuscripts dealing with theological subjects. The collection donated by the family of the collector Abraham Yehuda includes many works by Newton about mysticism, analysis of holy books, predictions about the end of days and the appearance of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. It also contains maps that Newton sketched about mythical events to assist him in his end of days calculations. We saw a handwritten text by Maimonides, also known as Rambam, and a Machzor, which is the book that you use for the high holidays, filled with notes from ancient Jewish communities. The library uses robotics to preserve and deliver fragile texts, which you can see on the right. Only in Israel could ancient wisdom and high tech meet so beautifully. It was just an incredible place. That's in Jerusalem, right near the Knesset. So, of course, I can't end it without showing pictures of food. The food was amazing, and it was a very hard thing to come home and not have somebody just put like 7 courses of salads out for me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The food was just amazing, absolutely amazing. And it's so interesting because, of course, it's all kosher for the most part there. So we would know when we were going out for a meat dinner. And the meat, you can see these pictures. They put out, it was beautiful. But otherwise it was dairy, and it was just like, these beautiful spreads of all different kinds of salad and hummus and tahina and different types of eggplants and carrots. And then they put out, pizzas and this and that. It was just, the amount of food was embarrassing. And then going into the markets, and the food, the way it's presented is so beautiful. Down in the bottom, in the middle, that's my friends and I having sabich, which we just went and had some at Tal's. So I recommend, if you want to try this, the sabich is a vegetarian pita sandwich that has a boiled egg, a hard-boiled egg kind of smashed in it with roasted eggplant and hummus and salad and all different kinds of things. It's delicious. So the food was amazing. That picture, the date carpaccio, that was in our hotel in Tel Aviv. The breakfast spreads are just unbelievable. I mean, that's just one of the amazing things that they have there. Who ever heard of date carpaccio? It's just delicious. So that is it. That is it. Yes. Here, I think to turn off the recording and see if there are any